Hi class, we're back again and now we are on Learning Objective 6.5, which is going to be to discuss how corporate strategy is evaluated and changed. Now, one thing I want you to remember is that if you change a corporate strategy, know that it's the only thing that can change a mission statement. If an organization needs to go in a different direction, it's absolutely crucial that you evaluate your corporate strategy. So look at figure 6-6. It's basically focusing on corporate goals, and there are certain objectives in which you look at your corporate goals. These objectives will become the standards against which actual performance is measured. So what should some of the corporate goals be? Maximizing stockholder wealth, increasing our market share, have a strong global presence, increase productivity, have a positive reputation and an image, have high customer satisfaction, and high product quality, and ultimately increase your revenues and earnings. So we'll also look at efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity measures. So let's talk about what an efficient corporate strategy is. By definition, efficiency is an organization's ability to minimize resources use in achieving organizational objectives. And effectiveness is the ability of an organization to reach its goals, where productivity is a specific measure of how many inputs it took to produce output. Typically it's used in the production operations area. And what it is that when you measure productivity, you take the overall outputs of goods and services produced and divide it by the inputs needed to generate that particular output. Then you got a benchmark. Benchmarking is the search for the best practices inside or outside an organization. Benchmarking is from others leading organizations. That's competitors or non-competitors that are believed to have contributed to their superior performance. Do a portfolio analysis. This is analysis that's done with two-dimensional matrices that summarize internal and external factors. Okay, we have what's called a BCG matrix, also known as the growth share matrix. It's a simple four-cell matrix created by a Boston consulting group as a way to determine whether a business unit was a cash producer or user. It uses an x-axis, a measure of the business's unit's relative market share, that is relative to who was leading the market. Market share is a proxy for the business unit's internal strengths and weaknesses. Relative market share is defined as the ratio of a business unit's market share compared to the market share held by the largest rival in the industry. We have something called circles, and that represents an organization's various business unit. The size of the circle corresponds to the size of the business unit using some measure such as business unit proportion of total corporate revenues. How do we classify business units then? We have a dog. That's low relative market share and low industry growth. But we also have strategy recommendations. Then we have a question mark, and that is low relative market share, but high industry growth. And that's recommended for a business unit evaluated as a question mark, and that those with the weakest or most uncertain long-term potential should be divested. Then we got STAR, high relative market shares and high industry growth rate. The strategic recommendation is to maintain this company's strong position while taking advantage of the significant growth opportunity in the industry. Then we have the cash cow. That's high relative market share but low industry growth rate. The simplicity, this means that cash flow generates from cash cows, and that should be used to question marks with potential and to support stars. So what's the simplicity of the BCG? It suggests advantages and also biggest drawbacks. If I want you to look at the McKinsey / GE stoplight matrix and read all about that. I want you to go into and read product / market evolution matrix. That's the 15-cell matrix that was developed by Hofer. So, how do we change corporate strategies? Changes are needed if why do we change them? Changes are needed if the evaluation shows that the corporate strategies aren't having these intended results. The first result is, are the growth objectives being attained? Is there organizational stability, which is causing the organization to fall behind? We think it's stable, but it's falling behind. Do we have organizational renewal? That's efforts aren't working. And when we talk about strategies open to change, are we talking about functional, competitive, or direction strategy? So what are some of the things we want to take away in 6.5? We want to know why it's important to evaluate corporate strategies. What are the 4 ways to evaluate corporate strategies? And then describe each of the portfolio analysis matrices, including how it's used, the cells in the matrix, and its advantages and drawbacks. And that would be when you do your portfolio analysis, all right, like how what you're doing is used, and which is going to have what number of cells depending on what matrix you prove. But you want to look at BCG, growth share matrix, and these are all matrices, the McKinsey / GE, the product / market evolution matrix, and that is pretty much it for 6.5.